Good morning, everybody. Happy new week. And right next to me, I have my amazing author, Kim Billington, very, very fresh, hot off the press. As you can see behind her, nicely set up, author of the A Counselor's Companion. So, Kim, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Nat. I'm very well. I'm wearing a warm woolly jumper in like a pink colour, and you're in a strappy top. You must be in a different state from Melbourne.
Yes, for another 5 days, and then I'm coming back home. But yes, it's beautiful and sunny. We had a lot of rain here last week, which was really, really sad looking. But now the sunshine's come out. We've been to the beach a few days, and yes, I'm in a little dress, feeling, just enjoying the last few days of sunshine before. Actually, I prefer Melbourne for focus and working versus being in Queensland. I always feel like in a holiday mode that I should be out there just at the beach and doing stuff like that. So I think a mix of both is a good balance. So thank you so much for saying yes to this author interview, if you like, because I know how important your book is, and I know Stuart has said to me that he had the most entertaining time helping you unpack this book when that was happening, because we are one of the target markets that you target this particular book at, which is, parents and counselors and teachers, as you have said, and you'll tell us all about that. But for the rest of you guys, I just want to give you Kim's official introduction, and then we'll get talking about these awesome cool tips that she shares within her book. And look at all those little drawings behind her. She's on brand this morning, which I absolutely love. All right, so here's her little bio. So Kim Billington is an experienced and qualified counsellor and accredited counselling supervisor. Kim has built a career working with families. She wrote her book, A Counsellor's Companion, as a way to pass forward her knowledge and learnings about ways to support children to counsellors, parents, and teachers. Kim's passion is to support people who work and live with children and young people to make time and space to hear the voice of the child. In her career as a counsellor, Kim has written many training booklets and had articles published in professional counselling journals. Over the years, people began to say, can you put all these ideas into one book? So by mid-lockdown in Melbourne last year, we're all in that big lockdown, September 2020, the cosmic algorithms introduced Kim to us, the ultimate 48-hour author, and she took up the challenge to become a published author. So this year, she has begun to write another book, because she's already committed to her second book publishing, for counsellors of adult clients and for adults too, who are struggling with a variety of challenging life problems. So today's live is named Hearing the Voice of the Child. So Kim, why did you put that kind of a title? I love it. I'm curious. Can you talk us through and give us a little bit of a breakdown as to what you're about?
Well, I often use the last century as a kind of metaphor for our thinking. So last century, people really weren't that interested in hearing the voice of the child. Children were to be seen and not heard, or, all that kind of thing, and pretty much silence, shut down. No, you've done the wrong thing. Go to your room. No pocket money for a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's because the adults, the parents or the teachers, they actually weren't aware that the child has got emotions that are sometimes big, sometimes middle-sized, sometimes small, that are unexpressed. If you can't express your emotion, what do you do with it? It ends up in a behavior. So to create a safe place for your child to hear the voice, whether they, cry and put their hand where the emotion is, they often can't say in words what it's about. Even teenagers, they can't express. When you're heightened with an emotion, you can't express the emotion. So creating the safe place to hear the voice of the child is central to the book, really.
I love it. Beautiful. So talk to me about these big and little emotions and what you just said. I was very curious. Tell me when someone touches themselves wherever, what does that mean?
Look, as adults, we become expert at suppressing or containing emotions. If I'm sitting with adult clients, I see a little elbow or, shoulder flick, or a little knee or foot flick, and I go, whoa, that's the emotion inside wanting to speak, right? So we've all got, like the babushka doll, we present as the outer babushka doll, but inside, if we unpack it, we come down to the little tiny one. That's the child. So As an adult, we can suppress emotions, which can cause illnesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
As children, they haven't got the skill yet to suppress emotions, so it all comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say, emotion, is that a middle-sized, okay emotion, or a teeny tiny bit of grumpiness? Is it rage?
Mm-hmm.
Is it frustration? Or is it just a little bit of a grumpy feeling? So we can scale the emotion like that, and then the child feels it's more playful. In the book, there's a lovely picture that Tamar drew, and it's around
Yep.
using that scale we use for the bushfires in Australia.
Yes. Yep.
And so as soon as a family comes to see me or they see me on Zoom, I email them a copy of that picture so that we've got something we can look at together. And what's really funny is very often the parents will say, well, I want the arguing to be low to moderate, please. And the boys will say, yeah, but Mum, we've never got to catastrophic. We don't mind it being very high. And then we have a discussion about what's an okay emotion, as long as people don't hurt one another.
I love that. So tell me about, like, when small children, where do they touch for certain things? What's the meaning?
Look, a lot of children will say they've got a tummy ache before school. And so you can say, look, I'll put my hand on my tummy too. Take a breath in. Yeah, I feel it. You do the same. That tummy ache's telling you something. Mm-hmm. It's a little emotion. It's a little feeling.
Yeah.
Let's take another breath in through the nose. Now through the mouth. Oh, hello, little feeling. Yeah. I'll be with you. I'll be with you all day today. You can teach your child self-compassionate talk rather than dismissing it, teaching the child to contain it.
Yeah.
So, obviously there are times we need to contain it. If you're nervous and you're going for a job interview as a 15-year-old, well, it might be really good to contain that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong when you get home to say, Mum, I've just had a terrible day. I don't even feel like eating, And the parent says, okay, I'll put my hand there too. Let's just breathe with this. This is a real thing happening inside you. Yeah. Take a breath in. Let it out. It's there. This is life. This is the reality of life. We have these things called emotions.
So we're teaching them like how to contain them. Was that like what I'm getting from you? Of course, at appropriate times. And then
look, at times we have to contain them. For example, if the child has moved from a little bit of frustration up to rage, in that moment when they're heightened, you can't even speak to them. They won't hear you.
No.
Same with us, yes. Human beings, when we become heightened, we stop listening.
Yeah. So
the best thing to do is previous to this happening, in other words, just in general with your children, is to be able to say, look, when any of us get heightened and upset and distressed or rage, we all need a system in our family. And sometimes that means time away, not go to your room, it's your time out, but I'm going to go and have some time away. I'm going to hang the washing out.
Yeah.
So we give the person space.
Yeah.
We don't confront them. And then when they're not as heightened, when we can say, look, last night at dinner, there was this big kind of upset, can we talk about it? Is that okay? What did you need me to say? I obviously didn't respond in the best way, but you were screaming at your sister. And, that's not right either. Can you see that? How can we manage it next time?
Yeah. I've heard that, from adult world, like making decisions when we're too high or too low is not the right time. We need to wait till we come back to neutral before we can make a sort of more thought through decision. And yes, I have noticed definitely you cannot speak to someone who's, I guess even on the two scales of, whether it's anger and rage or, really sad or something like that. So that's interesting to know. I guess it's just expressed differently with children, isn't it? And adults forget what it was like to be a child.
Totally. And one of the best things for adults is to, if they're confronted as a teacher or a parent or even a counselor, someone's in your space and it's a young person or a child, and you're not sure what to do, think back to something when you were similar age, because it could be, if you don't know what to do, you can't access your front cortex, your adult wisdom and mind. If you can't access that when you're with a young person or a child, it's probably because you're being triggered. You're being triggered by something that happened at a similar age, because the body keeps the score. The body never forgets your own little traumas, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're with a 10-year-old and they're having a flip out, you know, it's like, oh, if you were chastised severely as a child, you might go, put your hand on your chest, put your hand on your belly and go, okay, yeah, here we go. I've got to be the adult now and not the frightened child that's trying to solve everything.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, you're right. Your body and our imprinting stays with us forever. Yeah. I love it. So what about, you talk about learning to connect before correct, you know, and a lot of parents can be, you know, wanting to be in control. So how do we manage those situations? And tell me a little bit about the differences between connecting and correcting.
Yeah, well, I mean, counsellors don't go about correcting. We, you know, especially say you're looking at a school counsellor, any disciplinary matter that goes to the teachers, because otherwise that would breach the kind of therapeutic alliance that the counsellor has with the child.
Yes.
As a parent or a teacher, you've got a child that's acting in some way that's, you know, maybe just for example, they've decided they're going to stand on the chair, you know.
Yeah.
Now you can go into your critical mode and say, you know, get down off the chair. How, you know, that's wrong. Or you can say, well, actually, did you know chairs are for sitting on? You know, I wonder what that's about. You know, you can kind of use a bit of humor. You can connect. That's connecting.
Yes.
You're not throwing out your anger and your disapproval, which completely distances you from the child. You're connecting with the child. You find a way to go, oh, okay, I hear you. You know, you don't want to eat this dinner I've made. That's fine. I'll try and not be too offended. But actually, that's the dinner I've made. I'm not going back to the kitchen to make anything special. If tonight you don't want to eat it, so be it. You know, you're using your rational mind as the adult to find a way that is empathic, responsive, in the moment, connecting.
Yes.
You know, and then potentially, you see, and I'll just mention that now. You can set up something called the solution book. This is the $2 solution book. You don't even need to pay money to go and see counselling if you work with the solution book.
So
if a family,
what does one put in there?
You know what? It's magic. It's magic, Nat. You write in it, and any child or family member writes in this solution book a problem. When you sit down once a week as a little family and open it, inside will be the date and what the problem was. Oh, that was 7-year-old so-and-so that wrote that problem. And then everyone goes, okay, let's look at that problem. And everyone sits together looking at the problem, getting ideas going. Children are very good at coming up with ideas. They are these, you know, brainstorming, amazing people. So, and families can come up with solutions. There's something called family meetings. So I would recommend everyone, it's in the book, but family meetings once a week, 20 minutes. Use this $2 solution book. It can be also planning for a birthday party or a holiday.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is really important that we get together and do that.
Yeah, I love it. We do family meetings, but not quite as regularly as you recommend. And it's really good. So the solution book, someone goes in and they can put something in before the family meeting, but then it gets addressed at the family meeting.
Yeah. And I always suggest, look, you put the date there because you want to make sure you review anything you've discussed in a month's time, because you have an idea and it might not quite work, it might need tweaking. But again, there's no family democracy that says we're all equal. The family, or in a classroom, you know, the teacher, the parents, they have a responsibility for young people. So that allows them a little bit more power and influence. But again, hearing the voice of the child, children are very canny, they're very clever, they come up with really good ideas. And the family meeting is a safe place for the child's voice to be heard. And often they come up with better ideas than parents.
I mean, we know when more heads come together, we're creating the power of the mastermind, don't we? and
Mm.
young minds are so agile, that
Yeah.
they can think in many different directions.
And if you only do use the solution book when there's a problem, it won't work.
Mm.
The magic, the key that opens the solution book for just $2
Yeah.
is making it regular, because even if there's no problem to discuss, let's talk about something exciting to plan about. Let's randomly pick a name out of the hat, and everyone say something that they appreciate about that person.
Yeah.
It's the family just touching base together. I mean, schools do this. They have like in high school, the form meeting before you go off to your classes. They all sit with their form teacher.
Yeah. I remember that from high school. Yeah, amazing. Oh, that's such a great idea. And as you said, you could put other things in the solution book, or
Absolutely.
certain activities, or things that the family wants to do together. Wonderful. What's the best time to have a meeting, do you think? Is it on the weekends or
I think Friday,
Friday?
after school, or after dinner, with snack. You've got to have food. Remember Enid Blyton? Every chapter of her book had children eating food.
Uh-huh.
You've got to have some nice food, homemade cookies or something like that, or bought ones. Or at the end of the meeting, you say, okay, whose turn is it to choose what the food is for the next meeting?
Uh-huh.
And so everyone gets involved. But again, 50% of families are separated,
Mm,
so that's hard too. So
yeah.
maybe once a fortnight, if um, they could have it once a week at mum's house and once a week at dad's house.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. How do you handle those situations? Well, we always have chicken and chips on Friday nights, so and everyone's really happy with that. So we could anchor. I always say also with if you want to build a new habit, you connect it with another habit. So like, if you're brushing your teeth and you want to do something else, do it
Yeah.
straight after you've brushed your teeth, or it's something that happens all the time if it's a daily habit, right? And
Yeah.
I could
And
link out another chicken and chips night.
and look, if you take one of your children down to the newsagent and say, which exercise book should we buy? Which texter should we buy to write the solution book on the cover? What I mean? You let the children own the family meeting. Too often the parents own it, and then a person is a chairperson that moves around.
Yeah. So it switch over the chair people
Yeah, every time.
every single time. I love it. Okay, so the other thing that you had here, adults who get to tell the child's story. So tell me about that. A space. How do you create a safe space to express worries, wishes, and needs? Is it to do with the solution book, or is there some other ideas that you have?
Look, that's a little bit different, really. Again, when I supervise counsellors that work with children and adults, but when I'm working with counsellors that counsel children, basically what happens is they'll say, oh, in the referral, the parents just say he's really angry, he's heightened all the time, he's aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So that the child is being described and labelled by the parent, the very closest person to that child. So what happens is we in the end, the child will internalize that. And they'll think, oh, I'm just angry and aggressive, which will bring them to a sense of shame, which then will turn into rage. So, and the point is we've got to help parents say, okay, well, what's wonderful about your child? I know you've got some problems that are popping up at home. There's some anger popping up and aggression. I hear you. But could we first of all hear about what's wonderful about your child? What is one thing that pops to mind? And, oh, well, they're really helpful with their baby brother. Okay, so helpful with baby brother. That's a beautiful image. What can you tell me a little story about what, when the child's helpful with the baby brother? And then what happens is the parent starts to talk about the child in a totally different way, in a tender way, in a devotional way. Yeah. And then when I see the child, or when the counsellor that I'm supervising sees the child, the counsellor can say to the child, oh, it's nice to meet you. What's really lovely? When I met mum and dad, they said that one thing that was really wonderful about you was that you really take care of your little brother. Now, how different is that from the child coming to their first session and you say, look, I hear you've got some anger and aggressive problems, you know.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel right, does it? You know,
No.
like, you know, making, you're not going to have an open-ended conversation, are you?
No. And in narrative therapy, we call that double listening. We're going to listen to the problem, acknowledge the problem. These parents are going through hell because of the problem.
Yes.
But let's listen with the other ear to who this child is.
Because sometimes what is being said about us, is that true, is often not something that we have thought of ourselves, but how we've heard someone overheard what our grandparents or our parents or adults, you know, teachers even, you know, people who get labeled a certain thing in life, that just keep living up to that. You know?
And we call that having that internalized. I remember once when I was in my 30s going to some, you know, training workshop, and they said, answer this question. I am, and there was a blank, you know, and I just put, I am naughty. Because that's how I'd been always referred to, you know, this naughty child that couldn't sit still or whatever, you know, a bit cheekier. And actually that was still with me in my 30s. This was it had become an internalized description of me. And I decided at that point that actually, you know, naughty was working in my favor, because I connected with children in a way, because we're not naughty. We're wanting new things to happen. We like life to be a bit exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had the label of I'm selfish, you know, because I had heard, you know, a family, you know, whether it's aunties or mom, or, you know, oh, she's so selfish, or, you know, like, you know, that kind of stuff. And in my head, and as you say, sometimes it may serve us in a positive way, because it turns you into a person that, you know, like I give so much all of the time in everything that I do, and even more than enough, because that's the feedback I keep getting from, you know, the people I interact with, especially in my business and with my clients. You know, you just give away so much of your stuff all of the time now. But I don't believe that. You know, I choose not to believe that anymore, because sometimes it's nothing to do with us. It's more how other people, what are they coming from, what lens of beliefs and experiences in their own life that they perceive this to be X or whatever.
That's right. And again, that's from the last century, that a lot of these words like selfish, naughty, you hear less and less now in this 21st century. But occasionally they pop up, and we can say to a parent, I'll say, oh, that sounds like 20th century language.
Yeah. So is that like, and that's how you can tell, because it's you know, words that were used more in the past.
Well, you know, any word that describes a little child in a way that would make that child feel ashamed or, you know, unhappy, then that isn't the way of the future. That isn't what we've learned. We've learned that to do that actually affects the child's heart. I'll put my hand on my heart and my belly when I'm with a child and say, oh, what's it like when you hear mum say that? And they'll put their hand there and go, it doesn't feel nice, Kim. You know, say, well, is that something we want to work on? Getting mum to think about every time she thinks that she's not going to be saying it. She's going to say something else. What would you like mum to say? Like, instead of selfish, you know, that I might say to the child, that's really you looking after yourself. You want to curl up in bed and not come down to dinner because you've had a big day. That's not selfish. That's looking after yourself. Are you happy with that? Because again, if the child can express themselves, their voice can be heard, and say, I've had a big day, they feel happier, they're understood. Everyone goes, oh, okay, it's not going to happen every day. It's not going to become a new pattern, because the child is going to be happier that mum's heard.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you say, and I'm sure there's so many gold nuggets just like this throughout the book. That's why people made you come on, do it. You know, how long had you been thinking about doing it before you found us? Like, had it been on your radar, or was it because of the pandemic that finally you had this extra time?
Oh, look, for over 15 years or 20 years, I've been delivering, talks about parenting and working with children. And every time I do, I put together a workbook or, so I'd kind of already been doing it in some way, capturing what I wanted to share and putting it in writing. So although I'm not a writer, I don't profess to be a writer, nevertheless, I think I've been able to communicate in the book the essence of these ideas and, things that will actually inspire people. So basically, the algorithms sent me your Facebook things saying, come and write a book. And I went, you know what? Now's a perfect time.
Yeah, beautiful. So how was the process? How did you find the journey going through it? You came to the November retreat last year and you had your book in hand pretty much,
in March.
So 3 to 4 months after the retreat is when I say. So you followed
it was
the T.
It was hard work. You don't realize what's involved, but I couldn't have done it on my own. You guys have got the expert knowledge, the skills. You're very generous, as you said, in sharing everything. You've got so many YouTube tips on each stage, and short ones. No one wants something more than 3 minutes. You've got these, and then you've got the editors, you've got the layout people, you've got people like Stu and Viv and Julie who help you unpack things. You guys have just got everything there ready to go. So without that, I couldn't have written this book. So thank you very much for helping me write my book.
It's amazing. I just love it. And, it looks beautiful as well. I know you had an illustrator for it as well, for all the pictures.
Yeah, so Tamar Delev and I, again, although I'd met her a few years ago, we only worked on Zoom throughout the whole writing of the book. So I would send her images and she would send them back to me and we'd have Zoom meetings. So Tamar Delev is a local artist, award-winning artist, and she's got that lovely creative style. She did over 50 black and white illustrations in the book, and even this one here, the fight, flight, freeze. It's so unique. And I show, pictures now in my training of her drawings, and everyone loves it.
You'd be using them in all your presentations. I mean, they're yours now, and and that's good for her as well. Amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
We're so glad to have helped you, and it's always so heartwarming to see, a topic like this also, come into the marketplace and help those teachers, counselors, parents, understand children a lot more and be able to hear them and what are they saying, because we forget, but yet the inner child is still within us. Well, if anyone wants to write a book, guys, visit writeabook.com.au to check out what we've got on offer. But more importantly, I'd love to know, where can people buy your book, Kim? Where have you got it? Share your website.
Look, it's obviously it's on places like Amazon and Booktopia and Angus and Robertson's, and that's, at the moment, they're about $32. But it's on my website, kimbillington.com.au. It's still at $19.95 plus $5 postage. So at the moment it's cheaper to buy from me if people want to, and I just put it in the mail the next day, and I'm very appreciative, of course. But my main thing is to get it into universities where counsellors who are training can learn more about this, because child counselling isn't covered that well in university courses. So that's a really big focus for me this year.
So that's your intention, get it into university. So it almost becomes one of the recommended reading material, or essential, mandatory.
Yes.
I love it. And you work your business from home. We chatted before we got on to the, and so you've created this flexibility and you're able to help families, but also be able to counsel. And as you say, now some counselors are also asking you for some of the techie advice of how do you become do it in this virtual world, Zoom and all that.
That's right. Using that Zoom whiteboard is a skill I've had to develop. Last year I did about 26 trainings and everything had to be using Zoom in the lockdown. And so, today at 11:30 I've got a 90-minute Zoom webinar about using the Zoom whiteboard for counsellors.
Another niche, when you successfully do something yourself, you are able to then impart some of that knowledge and those shortcuts to other people. So guys, kimbillington.com.au. So Billington, Billington. Did I get it right? Because
Yes, thank you.
.com.au, just because in voice recording, some people won't see it like typed up. So go and grab the book at a special rate. Otherwise, it's available at all your good online booksellers. It's called A Counselor's Companion. It's right there behind her if you're watching this on video.
Yay.
And it looks absolutely beautiful. So congratulations, Kim. And I really, really appreciate all your tips this morning. I'm going to go and make sure I'll talk to my family about Friday night to be chicken and chips, which is what we always have, and get our solution pen, which we can do right here on the second week of school holidays. The kids can choose one. So that'll be my action from this morning. We've had a few people write comments. I encourage you to go and check those out. Thank you guys, those of you that have been watching live, because we're through Zoom. I don't get them coming up on the screen, but you've got like many comments here from fellow listeners. So I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Kim Billington, and go and set your own family meeting. That would be my suggestion, and buy your own solution book. Have a wonderful week, Kim. Bye.
Thank you so much, Nat. Wonderful opportunity. Thanks for the team.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.